They are encouraging these boys, and these boys are driving because I cannot buy as a doctor.
Yeah.
It makes me angry.
Yeah.
I just came from Ghana. I saw what they were doing there.
Yeah.
It makes me very angry.
Yeah,
okay, and these people should stop giving the money to them.
Yeah.
He put constant pressure on me about this money. It soon consumed our conversation. All of a sudden, every conversation was about this money until I gave it. And then that second request for money came again. And then it was constant conversation about that money. And I felt like I was his emotional hostage, to the point of where if I don't pay this money, I'm never going to be free of this. I felt like I was paying my own ransom to get free from the emotional hold that he had on me.
The use of online dating apps or social media networking sites have dramatically increased to meet someone since COVID. The Federal Trade Commission has reported in 2022 Americans have lost over $1 billion to romance scams. The victim contacted IFW Global to request assistance for her to recover her money that she had lost to an online romance scammer.
I decided I wanted to start dating again, and it seemed like the normal thing now was online dating.
Romance scams occur when an individual uses an online dating site to connect with an individual. They create fake profiles, personas, and use very attractive photographs of someone else, not themselves.
Well, I almost gave up on the sites because I wasn't finding anyone of interest to me. And then I saw his profile, and he had a very attractive photo, a couple photos up there, and he was in the area, which I liked. He had a very interesting, intriguing job that I thought, he listed his job as a private investigator, and I thought, well, that's interesting. I'd like to learn more about that. And he was a widower around my age, so all those pieces seemed to fit. So I thought, wow, let me reach out to him. So I sent the first message to him, and since I reached out first, I'm like, well, he's not pursuing me, I'm pursuing him, kind of thing, and thinking, well, I'm not going to get scammed if I'm the one reaching out.
Relationships are built on trust and romance. Once the scammer believes that he has captured your emotions, and once he or she professes their love to the victim, all of a sudden they will bring in some type of emergency or financial crisis that came in their life and they need assistance. So they'll ask for money.
We texted on like an every other day. Sometimes there'd be 2 or 3 days in between our conversations, as he kept telling me how busy his job was. But our conversations were very similar to when you're just getting to know somebody, like, what do you like to do for fun? What are your favorite movies? What kind of music do you like? So the conversations were very on that get to know you type level. They weren't very personal in the beginning. And we were texting back and forth for 4 months. I would ask about doing a video call or a phone call many times, but he said because of his job that this would be risky, that would put him in danger, it would compromise his assignment, and that would not be possible. We did speak on the phone one time, and that was after he asked me for money.
Our victim, Francis, met an individual online on a dating website. Mr. Harris asked our victim, or asked Francis, to take the conversation off the dating website onto a text message platform.
When we first met on the site, we communicated on the site for approximately 2 to 3 times. After about the 3rd time, he indicated because of the work that he did and how busy he was, it would be much easier for him to communicate with me off the platform. So he gave me a mobile number, and then after a few weeks, that phone number became compromised, he told me, and he gave me a different number, which was a Canadian area code. The Canadian number also got compromised after a couple weeks, and then we moved off of using texting via phone numbers into a platform called Google Chat. After about 2 to 3 weeks of texting using the phone numbers, it went to Google Chat primarily.
Once they ask for the money, the scammer will not stop asking for the money. It seems like every victim I spoke to, the romance and the relationship has gone to the side, and the scammer continues to ask for money and continues talking about the financial crisis they're in, that they need so much help, that they just keep bothering the person until they actually give them the money. Through several weeks, they communicated through emails and text messages. Mr. Harris was telling Francis that he is a private investigator and works for the United Nations, was in a dangerous country. And once he professed his love to Francis, he started saying that he wanted to come get out of his contract with the United Nations, and that he would need $25,000 to make travel arrangements and to break his contract with the United Nations.
And while he was in Afghanistan, he was doing these missions that were under a United Nations contract. And there was a series of missions that he had to complete as part of this contract. With each mission, the danger was getting more and more, and he wanted to get out of his contract. And he told me the only way to get out of his contract is for him to pay the United Nations $27,000 to get safe passage back to the United States. And at that time, I didn't have $27,000. My life savings was approximately $25,000, and miraculously, like $25,000, he was able to come up with $2,000, and if I could pay the $25,000 for his safe passage back to the United States. My reaction when he asked me about the money was I was angry. I was very angry because I felt that, I had my suspicions because there were some contradictions in some of the things that he would say to me, and we had not yet spoken on the phone or anything, and he was asking me for this, like, basically my life savings to help him end his contract with the United States or with the United Nations and come back to the United States. While he was in Dubai, he indicated that he was being held related by Dubai authorities related to a mission he had worked years earlier related to a UAE soldier being killed. In addition to that, he was carrying some rare gems that he recovered from a mission, one of his earlier missions, on the plane, and those were being held in customs. The next day, he contacted me again saying that he got a lawyer. If he paid these taxes, everything would be fine and they would release him and let him go. However, he told me that he doesn't have access to his money until he returns back to the United States and he's debriefed. It was up to me to help him so that we can be together. So I asked him, well, what are these taxes? How much are these taxes? And then when he told me $60,000, I about blew a gasket because I had just given him $25,000, which was my life savings, and now he wanted me to come out with $60,000 more. When I looked closer at the account name, that triggered something in me that made me start to wake up and see this isn't real, because the name was so phony of this account. I don't know, it just stood out. The name was Toy Films. And I'm like, what kind of account is this? And I questioned him, And I accused him right out of not being real because this was a fake account. It was clear it was a fake account just by the name of it.
When Frances called IFW Global and told us her story, we initiated an investigation.
I started Googling things like ways to get money back from romance scammers, and a few private investigative services came to the surface. I did receive responses back from 3 of the private investigative services. 2 of them basically told me, said, well, we can tell you if he's real or not, but your money's gone. There's no way to get your money back. The third private investigative service that I found was IFW Global. And I received a call from one of their investigators, and he was confident, based on the information I provided him about my story, the paper trail that I had, that he would be able to get my money back.
When I asked Frances how she sent the money to the scammer, Frances told me that the scammer gave her specific instructions to send a wire transfer from her bank to another bank. When Frances tried to do the wire transfer, the bank that she was sending the money to was permanently closed. She reached back out to the scammer and told him that she couldn't send the money that particular way. The scammer then gave Frances specific instructions to send the money through a cashier's check to a business located in Atlanta, Georgia. The business was the travel logistic company to make the travel arrangements for the scammer to travel back to the United States to be with Frances. When I conducted research on the address that she actually sent the check to, it came back to a residence, an upscale neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia. The one thing that stood out in my mind was that the business was registered to an individual with the same last name as the owner of the house where the check actually went to. I traveled to Atlanta, Georgia, and found that the business address was actually an apartment complex. So I went to the residence where the check actually went to and interviewed the occupants of the house. The occupants, a man and a woman, told me that they received mail for their nephew at the residence. Their nephew wasn't home at the time, but they did acknowledge that they received a check of $25,000 and called the nephew. The nephew came by and picked it up. I asked the aunt if the nephew was at home or was located in the area, and she told me that he was in Ghana. Ghana is a place where a lot of these romance scams come out of. So I asked the aunt if she could call the nephew up on the telephone. She agreed and gave me the telephone and spoke to the individual. So while talking to John on the phone, I told John that I was a private investigator and he had received money from my client of $25,000, which he had no business dealings with my client. John told me that he was actually he received the money, cashed the money, but gave it to his friend. What we consider John as being a money mule. A money mule is a person who transfers money to the financial institution on behalf of scam. The scammers want to distance themselves from the victim and the money, so it's hard to detect who they are, where they are. I told John that this was part of a romance scam, that he was involved, and he insistently told me that he's not involved, that he was just cashing a check for a friend. I told John that he needs to pay the money back to our client, to the victim, because this money did not belong to him. John acknowledged and said he would work with us, and through 4 months, we finally got the full payment back to our victim, Frances.
Some of the red flag indicators that you might be talking to a scammer online. Once you meet them on a dating app and they want to take you off that dating app to text messaging, to WhatsApp, email, that could be a sure indication that they are a scammer. The second one is they never want to do a live telephone call. And if they do, it's going to be a short call with poor connection. Also, if you ask them to do a video chat, they're going to decline because the pictures that they send you are not them. The third red flag indicator is once you establish that trusting online relationship or even that romantic relationship, they're going to ask for money. And it's going to be a crisis that came up in their life, an emergency that they're going to need money right away. You should not be giving any money to anybody you meet online. The fourth red flag indicator is they don't want to meet you in person. Obviously, if you're online trying to meet someone, you want to spend time with them. And if you set up a meeting and they postpone or they seem like they cancel all the time, that's an indicator that they're a scammer.
Over the course of a couple months, we were able to recover all the money that I had paid my scammer. The investigator from IFW kept me well informed throughout the course of the investigation. He kept me informed with every conversation, with places he's visited, where we were, with getting my money back. We initially were able to get the bulk of my money back within a couple weeks from the time he started the investigation. And the head of security in the fraud department of the bank was monitoring my account. And she realized that everything I told her about the romance scam was true, because the amount of money that was coming back into my account was the same amount of money that I initially took out of my account to pay the romance scammer. So she personally contacted me and wanted to ask me how I did it. And they said they've never seen any individual customer go out and get their money back. And so she was thrilled for me and wanted to know how I did it. And I explained to her I had hired an IFW investigator to pursue this matter on my behalf. And that's how I was able to get my money back.
If you think you've become a victim of a romance scam, there are several steps you need to do. Number one, the most important, stop sending them money. Number two, notify your bank, especially if you sent wire transfers or cashier's checks. They will be able to protect you and your accounts. Number three, contact IFW Global. Also contact your local police and the FBI. The FBI has an online submission form called the Online Complaint Referral Form, IC3. When you contact IFW Global, we encourage you to keep the communications open with the scammer. Do not let them on that you have contacted law enforcement or IFW Global. It's most important if you keep the lines of communications open, but do not send them any more money.